It's funny when I see CNN get owned. It's funny when I see CNN get schooled. And to be fair here, to be very fair here, what I've noticed is that the anchor was very receptive to Dr. Jill Stein because Dr. Jill Stein schooled CNN. And to which I have to say, the pundit really couldn't really push back after everything we saw last night in regards to what's happening not only at Columbia University, but universities all across this country. As the protests are gaining further and further attention, and I would have to say, especially with the military actions that Israel plans on doing on the city of Rafah, it's becoming very clear that, oh, the media just can't do its little cover shield wall story for Israel anymore. Neither can the politicians, especially with all the horrific imagery of men, women, and children starving, being shot at, and so much more. So give it up for Dr. Jill Stein as she schools and educates CNN. I'm going to pause it here and there, but as always, folks, as always, let this be a reminder to all of you. CNN and all corporate media will one day finally disappear. Someday, just not today.
As pro-Palestinian demonstrations spread on the nation's college campuses, protesters have been arrested by the dozens. Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein is one of them. Here is video posted on social media of the moment Dr. Stein was arrested at a pro-Palestinian rally at Washington University in St. Louis over the weekend. She joins me now. Thank you so much for being here, Dr.
By the way, folks, just want to say, hey, AOC, are you going to be standing with the protesters? Hey, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Presley. Are you guys going to be there? I know you've been to the protest, but are you going to hold the line? Are you going to stand with them? Probably no, but I always love performative tweets like this. If any kid gets hurt tonight, responsibility will fall on the mayor and university presidents. Other leaders in schools have found safe, de-escalatory path. This is opposite of leadership and endangers public safety. A nightmare in the making. I urge the mayor to reverse course because there's a New York mayor, Eric Adams, calling in the police to crack down on the protesters. But AOC, are you going to be with the protesters? No, probably not. But Jill Stein was.
We were just talking with my colleague about, the connective tissue and the ask and what's happening. I am really interested in why were you at the protest and did you intend or know or even anticipate that you could get arrested?
No, I certainly wasn't thinking about getting arrested. I attended the encampment to basically show support for the students because they are putting everything on the line. Their careers, their graduation, their housing, you name it, really, their lives are very much on the line here in taking these actions. And, to my mind, they are upholding the highest values of American society in opposing genocide and also standing up for our constitutional rights to free speech and to the right to protest. So I had been invited by some students to stop by the encampment, which I did. Then I was asked to please try to de-escalate the situation with the administration. And I went to talk to one of the assistant chancellors who was there. We tried, we didn't succeed. And within an hour or two, it's not just that we got arrested, we got assaulted. We were assaulted with bikes used as weapons and really brutalized and beat up, thrown to the ground, arms, handcuffed behind our backs with the zip ties, and then walked over. So it was extremely brutalizing and violent. And I would point out that these tactics that are being used by the police have actually been imported from the Israeli Defense Forces, which we now call the Israeli Occupation Forces, who've been undertaking these training programs.
Now, I let this play out. We're 2 minutes and 9 seconds in. But listen very carefully. If this had been maybe 2 years ago, hell, maybe even before October 7th. How about that? Before October 7th. Or, you know what? Maybe even 3 months ago, too. How about that? Jill Stein would have been interrupted by the CNN host. Now, we cannot deny the images that we are seeing right now at these college campuses and the horrific images that we are seeing in Gaza. It cannot be denied. But in what good standing do Democrats and corporate media have? Now, they will try and find a way right now. And this is what I want to encourage all these protesters right now. Remember, especially to all these diehard progressives that are at Columbia University right now in New York City. Remember, AOC showed up for a photo op. Dr. Jill Stein, she got arrested. AOC and Ilhan Omar say words you want to hear and then dismiss what their Democratic colleagues do. They said that they were going to raise a ruckus, and they never followed through. Follow through is going to be key, folks. Do not waste your vote for the Democrats. Don't do it. Don't fall for that trap. The Democrats play both sides.
In most of the states, at least many states, and certainly in Georgia, in Louisiana, in Texas, the Israeli occupation forces are part of these international training programs for police and importing these very oppressive techniques that are used on Palestinians. It actually began in 2011, and this was analyzed after the Michael Brown riots and the very brutal actions of the police force. In fact, in taking down Michael Brown, that police force, the St. Louis police force, had actually been trained starting at that time by the IDF. And in an analysis done by Ebony Magazine, it was pointed out that extremely violent tactics were being imported along with these programs of sending surplus military equipment to our states and to our cities and towns for the use of
absolutely hear you.
vehicles.
I do hear you, Dr. Stein. Some schools have started suspending student protesters. They've asked officers to come onto the grounds as well. Do you think that suspension or the type of punishment that you have endured is appropriate for the student body?
Absolutely not. I do think that the students are standing up for our right to protest, our right.
Now, that was a dumb question by CNN. Look, everyone has a right to protest. This even goes for conservatives, okay? Everybody has a right to protest. And what we're seeing right now in this country is an administration, a Democratic administration, that is stomping down on free speech. And there's many examples. Number one, we are seeing how this administration is going after TikTok. We're seeing how this administration is removing candidates from being on the ballot. Yes, that even includes the evil orange man himself, Donald Trump, but that also goes for third parties. And Hard Lens Media has been covering this for a very long time. We've interviewed third-party candidates and independents. We've done that. And guess what? Democrats and Republicans were working together to stop third parties from being on the ballot, from being on the debate stage. Protesters, be they conservative, libertarian, green, independent, progressive, whoever, have a right to protest, have a right to free speech. And I'm pretty sure all of you have numerous different opinions, perspectives, and points of view, as you should. That is your right in this country to have a different perspective. But I'll be damned if we live in a world where all of a sudden a great person in a suit and tie is going to dictate who can speak and who cannot speak. This is madness and insanity. But yet CNN, they are struggling. How can you twist this? How can you twist this around to make the protesters look bad? And they've done this a lot of protesters, by the way.
To free speech and for a value, which is basically stopping this genocide and seeking to use economic boycotts and sanctions, much like the boycotts in South Africa. And to your point, yes, violence has been inflicted by police for a long time. And in the Columbia protests against the Vietnam War, 700 students were arrested and 150 were actually hospitalized due to the police brutality.
I know this is an issue that's very important to you. What do you think ought to be done, especially when you do have some divergent viewpoints from the student body as to the violation of school policies? What do you think ought to be done here?
So after the Columbia unrest in 1968, there were policies adopted by the university to ensure that there would be due process, that there would be sufficient warning in advance. And that's all being violated right now. It's being violated by the administration, which is why the fact.
So I am noticing in the chat here too. Look, folks, this election cycle, I know everyone is going to have to make their own choice on how you want to vote. Your vote is your choice to make. But what I want everyone to take away from this coverage and what we're speaking about here, especially when it comes on the right to protest, is what happens after 2024. What happens after election night in November? What happens then? And here's what we got to do. I think gone are the days, and I hope I'm right about this. I hope I am. But gone are the days where you have to put a person on top of a pillar and say, this is our leader, and we follow them. Each of you has to be a leader in your own community. You know, whatever you might think of Cornel West, Dr. Jill Stein, um, RFK Jr., Trump, Biden, or any other politician, break away from that mentality. You have to be the leader. And what I suggest we do, what I think each of us has to do, because each of you live in different states in this country, we have to, if you live in a citizen ballot initiative state, fight to preserve it. But if you don't live in a citizen ballot initiative state, fight to make your state a citizen ballot initiative state. We have to walk around these politicians so they come crawling to us. And if they don't come crawling to us, we elect those bastards out, or either that, abolish all political parties, get money out of politics, and put in people that will love this republic, that will fight for its people. But we have to preserve the right for free speech, and we have to remember who is stepping on us right now. And it's both Democrats and, yes, Republicans too, because no matter who sits in the White House, you better believe that they're going to fight to the bitter end to preserve the neoliberal agenda that is silencing all of us.
Faculty vehemently objects to what's being done, and why the faculty came out in great numbers to actually surround the encampment and to help protect the students. There is no danger here. The danger is being imported along with the police. These are riot police, which are creating a riot. The protests themselves in the encampments, I've been to many of them, they've been extremely peaceful, they've been educational, extremely calm, and community building. So I think the use of police here is entirely unjustified. Zionism is different from Judaism, and it is.
CNN's not going to like that. This is where Stein's kind of schools CNN a little bit on between Zionism and Judaism. Two different things altogether. Just like my favorite scene from Sopranos, where Bobby is sitting with Tony. They talk about the World Trade Center. And Bobby says, hey, Quasimodo, he predicted all this. What? Yeah, the end of the world. Notre Dame. Two different things altogether.
Entirely wrong to conflate the two, being against Zionism, which I regard as essentially a matter of ethnic cleansing and land theft. Essentially, that is the purpose of Zionism, to take land that belonged to other people. Yes, Jews have been horribly traumatized and victimized, but that doesn't then allow one group to take land and displace another group. To look at the actions of the Israeli government, they are attempting to drive the occupants out of this land altogether. And that has been very much the policy of Israel well before it was a state.
I love my Rumble audience. Hold on. Shout out to the Rumble Bumble people. Let's see. First of all, Citizen 421 says, Anchorwoman looks a little bit confused. You mean the protect and serve guys? They would never. And then, of course, Citizen 421 writes, yes, but Putin, TikTok, Xi Jinping, squirrel. Oof, she's got nothing. And Miss Witchy Perfect writes on Rumble, yeah, look at her face. She's like, why would you muck in with the poors, the poor people? Why are you going to be with the poor people?
Since the Zionist movement began, Jews who lived together with Muslims and Christians in Palestine for centuries. And it was a peaceful place. It was only with the advent of the Zionists, who felt like this land belonged to them, that the violence came. And many Jews left, as well as Christians and Palestinians, with the entry of the Zionists. This is a very difficult topic for people of Jewish background to come to terms with. And I see this as someone who grew up in the 60s. I see this as remarkably similar to the very difficult wake up of the white community with the civil rights movement in the 1960s. This was a difficult conversation that involved confronting the many institutions of white supremacy and the very challenging conditions of racism that were endemic, in our schools, in housing, and so on. It's
the CNN report is like, okay, I got the producer yelling in my ear. Tell her to shut up. This has been anyone else like from CNN. If it was Don Lemonhead or Brian Seltzer Water, Brian Seltzer or Don Lemonhead, they would have been interjecting. They would have been done it. Even Wolf Blitzer's lame ass would have been saying like, no, I got to interrupt you. I got to interrupt you. But hey, I'm great to see Jill Stein or anybody else own CNN. Okay. It's great. It's a work of art to me. Why? Because CNN as a news agency has been going to bat for the Democratic administration, just like they've covered also other Democratic politicians. And these crackdowns that we have seen, these protests that are being quickly pushed aside, this should be a reminder to all of you that are watching this show right now. Don't waste your vote on politicians and people who play both sides. And yes, I call for accountability for Democratic politicians and Republican politicians, and I will call for accountability for third parties and independents too. At the end of the day, we have to be the leaders. We have to step up. When the people lead, that's when the real leaders will follow, okay? That's what we have to do. And we have to break away from corporate media. Have you seen the body language of the CNN anchor? Not interested, not human at all, indifferent.
Hard conversation, but it has to be had, and it cannot be shut down. I think it's really important to have it, especially because our tax dollars are funding this war, which the American people vehemently protest.
I hear varying different viewpoints on.
Varying different viewpoints. You're gonna love this part, right? Varying different viewpoints. By the way, hey, yeah, I have a point of view. I don't like to see men, women, and children starving to death. I don't like that. Okay? I don't want to see a baby starve and die, lack of nutrition and food. I don't like to see, a whole area be turned into a moonscape. You know what I like to see too? Those hostages released too. Okay? I like to see, these first aid workers giving out food, not being deliberately struck. And I like to see those reporters be treated with respect that they deserve and not get shot at. The White House Correspondents' Dinner. Why? 100 journalists died in Gaza. Who the fuck did it? People at the White House Correspondents' Dinner? Who did that? How'd they die? It ain't the first time journalists died in that region. Who did it? Who? A bird goes tweet and an owl goes who? Who did it? But okay, hey, look, I got to be consistent here because I believe in free speech. Everyone deserves a different point of view, right? There's different points of view. I hope you're sitting down for this.
The complexity of this issue and personal opinions to that regard. And I do wonder if politics considers each and every aspect of it. My suspicions is that it does not, but this conversation has been very thought-provoking for me today. Thank you for joining us.
Yep. The producer's yelling in her ear, tell her to shut up. Shut up. What are we paying you your money for? Interrupt her. I shouldn't be yelling too much, but it's okay. Here, I want to pull up this other video here. Let's play it.
The future of students and really the younger generation is very much at risk, not only from these reckless and irresponsible wars, from normalizing genocide, but also student debt, from the lack of decent jobs, from the lack of housing. Fundamentally, this is a problem of end-stage capitalism. This is a problem of the vast concentrations of wealth now that are able to buy influence in every institution of our society. So this has everything to do with why confidence in our institutions has basically collapsed. The economy is not working for you. Congress and the White House, the Democratic Party trifecta, they could bail out Wall Street, and the crooks who crashed the economy back in 2008. They could mobilize trillions of dollars, just like they mobilized trillions of dollars for war. But they don't mobilize, the investment to end student debt and make public higher education free, which they should do, which would then bring down the cost of private higher education too. So it's a win-win for everybody. And basically it's an economic redevelopment program that we all benefit from. We know that every dollar invested in higher education is returned sevenfold back into the economy. It's really important that we get big money out, that we get the people back in to our elections, to our political process, and to the way that our foundational institutions run.
The whole system must be tore down. The whole system must have a reset button. The whole system must be demolished. Okay. What we have simply doesn't work. And I want to give a shout out to Kaiko, who says, I don't see Bernie or you mean AOC getting arrested for the people. No, they wouldn't. There was maybe a time that they could have. There maybe would have been a time if something did happen. But look, there's a bigger story here. And the real truth is our fight is going to be ongoing. 2024, it's not the year to wake up. It's the year where you should already be up. Okay? It's the year where you already had your cup of coffee and you see the bullshit right outside your front window. What I am saying here, it's not an easy task to do. Because even I have to do it too. We have to step up and be leaders in our community. Help out in any which way we can. And to fight to preserve what little freedoms we do have left. And one way we can do this is through citizen battle initiatives. That's right, ballot initiatives. But I'm going to take that from Roger Meadows. He calls them battle initiatives, the fight. And Dr. Jill Stein speaking out, yes, I agree with a lot of things that she's saying, but it's bigger than Jill Stein. It's bigger than all of us. It is the fight to preserve our right to protest, free speech, and actually have a government that could represent, controversial statement in a 3-2-1, a government that could represent the people. Now, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all these corporate media outlets are going to constantly keep on controlling the narrative and dismissing you. Did you see the body language of that reporter, that journalist, the pundit from CNN? Indifferent, not caring. A thought-provoking conversation. You didn't seem interested in the conversation at all. But I will say this. I am pretty impressed at overall the coverage that third parties are getting. Granted, every time that third parties are with or near the vicinity of corporate media, they are automatically vilified. But at least at this one point, Jill Stein owned CNN and gave them a thorough education, as they should. But the fight continues on. Break away from corporate media. Start supporting independent media. Start making your state into a ballot initiative state. And be the leader. Be the knight on the hill. These politicians, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and this even goes for the third-party candidates. They're not the knights on the hill. We are. We've always have been and always will be. And the right to protest, and no matter where you stand across the political spectrum, you have that right to protest. And you may not agree with that person, but they have a right to speak. It is the fundamental right of our republic, and I believe in the First Amendment. Because if we don't protect it, it's gone. Never to return again.